What's going on, guys? My name is Jake.
I'm Jesus.
This is your Body Comp Prescription, where we help you navigate through all things health and fitness. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at bodycomprx. We're not doctors or nutritionists, as always, so keep that in mind as we begin the conversation. Jesus, what are we going to talk about today for episode number 7?
Yes. Welcome, guys. Welcome to episode number 7. I think today we'll be talking about energy drinks, everything and anything has to do with energy drinks, the pros and cons of energy drinks. Let's get right into it. I think first and foremost, we'll talk about the purpose of an energy drink, right? Most of the time, we drink energy drinks because of the caffeine. The caffeine is known to increase our energy, our alertness, and our physical performance.
You want to go into some of those, like why it works for you, like why an energy drink would work?
So I guess we'll take a step back and kind of break down the science behind caffeine and what it really does to, give these things that it promotes. And I think one thing to realize is that when you drink caffeine, the research shows the positive effects comes from the free fatty acids that are in your system, right? So kind of like uses the fat source as the source for ATP. If you don't know what ATP is, basically energy, right? So the more we tap into that fat storage and we really break down that fat, we turn that into energy, and it just becomes a more natural. It kind of just basically hinders everything else and kind of just boosts all that energy right into your bloodstream.
Cool. Yeah, I think, one reason we wanted to talk about this is because I think energy drinks are becoming a lot more popular, especially since, energy drinks and like pre-workouts are starting to like cross over now that you can get pre-workouts in like a can form instead of like only a powdered form that you have to mix. So, I think a lot of people are worried that, is it bad that I drink like, a Bang or a Rain or, whatever pre-workout that's canned now, right? Is it bad to drink one of those before, I go to work or something like that? So we want to break that down for you. But I think a lot of the concern comes from, old school energy drinks, and we're not trying to demonize any, brand in particular, but, we're talking about like the Red Bulls, the Rock Stars, the Monsters, because of the amount of sugar that it has in it, right? Because everyone knows, too much sugar is not good for you. But what is kind of a lose-lose for energy drinks is that artificial sweeteners also get demonized. So you either get a regular energy drink and it has a ton of sugar, which is bad. But if you get an energy drink with artificial sweeteners, people are like, oh my God, too many artificial sweeteners are not good for you either, like sucralose or ACE K. I think the full term for it is acesulfame potassium or something like that. But what people don't realize is that the amount of artificial sweeteners that you would have to consume within, a day, every single day, in order to see negative side effects over time is, upwards of 6 cans of, diet soda or energy drinks every single day in order to, experience negative side effects. But, I think what people obsess over is this phenomenon that if it's artificial, it's not good for you. And if it comes from nature, that means it's better from you. But we already debunked that, because sugar comes from nature, but too much of that is not good for you, and vice versa. Antibiotics are, synthetic, they're man-made, and those are meant to help you, so don't necessarily always fixate over what's from nature and what's not from nature, But I do want to emphasize that one of the main downsides of sugar, aside from the calories that it adds, to your daily intake, is that, sugar can be addictive. And I think we've seen that in many cases, whether it's liquid or food. Sugar is really easy to consume, and can be very addictive to consume a lot of.
Yeah, I think so that kind of reminds me of like coffee, right? Because coffee at its core, when it's black, nothing added to coffee, it's ideally pretty good for you. There's no real negative effect to it because its calories basically none. It has 2 calories, has zero fat, zero protein, 0 grams of carb, right?
Mhm.
So you can't really go wrong with coffee. It's when we go in Starbucks and we order those frappuccinos, or we start adding a bunch of other things, sweeteners into it, is when we start getting into that area where it's like, okay, is this really good for me? Or is this bad for me? Right? Because if you're doing that every single time, like Jake says, like you're just adding the sugar on there. And quite frankly, it's because of the sugar the reason why people love Starbucks, why people love all these other coffee shops, because they add these sweeteners onto it, and that's what makes it good.
Yeah, it makes it taste like dessert, but I think one thing we want to talk about too is that um, energy drinks should not be you shouldn't be drinking energy drinks if you struggle with like anxiety, or if you have any heart issues or heart arrhythmias or anything like that, because a lot of these energy drinks, what they do is they have caffeine and they have other stimulants that increase your heart rate or manipulate your heart rate and your metabolism. And what those will do is they'll just like they'll amplify anything that you already have. Again, if you deal with anxiety or heart issues, so keep that in mind. If you have those, I think energy drinks should be off the table for you, or you should go see an actual doctor and make sure that that's something that you're allowed to drink and it's not going to harm you in any way.
Mhm.
But
I think even, oh, sorry. I just want to mention, I think even those individuals who don't already suffer from pre-existing, anxiety issues or anything like that, it's, I guess I can speak for myself, because if you drink a good amount of caffeine, you'll almost trigger those things. You'll make your body, your heart rate will go up, and you'll start to feel very anxious alone.
yeah, yeah, it'll be like an over. I mean, we all have our limits for
Mhm.
these stimulants also. So at a certain point, if you consume too much, you'll be overloaded.
Yeah.
So, but I think we should go into like some of the ingredients. Like if you look at a nutrition label, a lot of times people look at an energy drink and they have no idea what anything is because they have really long chemical names for everything.
Hmm.
So we want to address some of those and like what to look for and what to avoid. So some of the ingredients that I want to talk about first, I think I want to go over maltodextrin. A lot of people have heard of maltodextrin, but maybe don't know what it is. And this is something that you would want to avoid. Maltodextrin is a preservative that spikes your insulin. So if you struggle with diabetes, this is definitely something to stay away from. And if you have too much of it, again, it's not good for you in that sense either. But obviously, caffeine, that's the main reason you came to an energy drink, right? Too much caffeine, as we've been saying, can be bad. It induces withdrawals if you have it for over long periods of time, or several days in a row, or months in a row even, can induce withdrawals. And then when you try and take that away, it can induce headaches. Also, caffeine can mess with your sleep patterns, and we know that that's not good. Um, but also, sugar, excess of sugar adds calories, like we've said. Another common ingredient in energy drinks is ginseng. Ginseng comes from nature, but has been known to cause GI distress, or like stomach aches. So again, just because it's natural doesn't necessarily mean that it's fantastic for you, at least in large amounts. But
Mhm.
some of the things to look for um, in an energy drink are B vitamins. Obviously, are vitamins. A lot of people concern over the amount, like of our daily value. It'll say like 1,000% of our B6 or B12 or something like that. But B vitamins are all water soluble, so you just basically like excrete them out or pee them out if you have too much. So don't worry about like toxicity or anything like that. Um, citric acid is another preservative. It helps with flavor, so don't be too worried about that. Taurine as well. Those are all good things to look for in an energy drink, I would say.
Yeah, I think you mentioned vitamins. I think so when I was doing some research, I saw that a lot of these vitamins on these cans, they promote or claim that they help with energy, right? But as we may know, vitamins don't necessarily do that. So kind of like keep on the caution side of that when you're reading and looking into those ingredients.
Yeah, for
Is
sure.
it,
I mean, the like the those things are definitely like for marketing purposes. I mean, they probably found or made a single study that shows, that a B6 or a B12 can, improve your energy levels by 0.5%, and they found that significant. So they put that on their label to try and make it an extra selling point. So yeah,
yeah.
definitely want to echo that. It's a good point. But you know, uh, I think what everyone's trying to figure out is like how much caffeine is too much caffeine, right? Like, I don't personally drink a lot of energy drinks or coffee. I'm pretty much just a water guy, but I definitely understand that there's a lot of people out there that consume caffeine in high amounts on a regular basis. So, um, from what we found through a few studies, were that 400 milligrams roughly is kind of like what your limit should be. Obviously, this varies between person to person, how big you are, how small you are, our tolerance for caffeine, depending on how much we consume regularly, that affects how much we can intake. But, you know, just be cautious with this. There has been tons of reported cases that um, people go to the emergency room for heart arrhythmias or irregular heart rates caused by an excess of caffeine and sugar from energy drinks and soda and stuff like that. So you know just keep that in mind. If you're drinking coffee, if you're drinking energy drinks, and you're taking a pre-workout and stuff like that, you're taking in a lot of caffeine. So just try and kind of be on top of that and make sure that you're not over consuming, because that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think also one thing to consider is like those who take it for athletic performance, right? Um, so based on what we like talked about earlier is how these energy drinks slash caffeine, what it does to give us energy. We could really conclude that these energy drinks and caffeine is really more beneficial to those individuals who have a exercise or workout or performance that is long duration and low intensity, right? So I'm talking about those runners, maybe like cycling, things of that nature. But if you're doing some like powerlifting or some strength training, we don't really necessarily know or can say that that's very beneficial towards your training, right? It may help you feel more alert, right? It might give you feel like you have more energy for that lift, but studies have shown that caffeine really helps you for more long-term purposes. And then just like how Jake said, you could really recommend about 400. I'd say anything around 400 past, especially past 500 milligrams caffeine a day. I think you should very be careful with that because you run the risk of high blood pressure, even addiction. Jake mentioned earlier how those who become addicted have withdrawals, and you get headaches, you get all these issues, and you're really trying to avoid that.
Yeah, I think the main concern that we have is, obviously, if you have pre-existing conditions, energy drinks should be pretty off the table, for you. But assuming that you don't, for the sake of the argument, pre-workouts are, or sorry, not pre-workouts. Energy drinks don't contain the same amount of ingredients in dosages from drink to drink. So even if you go from monster to monster, right, different flavors, they'll have different
Mhm.
amounts of caffeine, they'll have different amounts of B vitamins, they'll have different amounts of every ingredient, basically. you know so jumping around, you have to be cautious about that, because one day you're getting X amount of caffeine, another day you'll get a different amount, and so on and so forth. And then once you start getting into the pre-workout territory, like the Bang, Rain, what's that, Rays or whatever,
Mhm.
the pre-canned pre-workouts, they have extra things in them, like the creatine, and they have BCAAs in them, and like CoQ10 or whatever, is in there. No, it's not necessarily bad for you to like drink before like anything that's not a workout, but
Hmm.
just keep in mind that those are things that are driven for a specific purpose for performance, you know.
Hmm.
So like just be careful, you know, like 300 there's 300 milligrams in a bang alone. So, you know, we talked about how, you know, 400 milligrams is kind of like where we should, you know, limit ourselves. So if you drink a bang and a cup of coffee, or a bang and a, you know, anything else that has caffeine in it, you're basically already at your daily limit, you know. So, you know, energy drinks aren't inherently bad, I would say, at least in my opinion, but you know, you just have to watch out for the quantities of those ingredients that we talked about that are, you know, a little bit more on the dangerous side, in excess, you know.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Cool. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Uh, no, I think just to kind of summarize it, I was thinking right now, just like how Jake said, they're not necessarily bad. We're not saying don't drink them because we obviously understand that sometimes, things happen in life and you really need an energy drink. You need that boost, but also be cautious of what you're consuming because of the high amounts of sugar they include and the high amount of caffeine. So yes, even though the caffeine is what we want, if you're consuming tons of caffeine for one day, you know, you might just end up crashing a few hours later. You might end up feeling very jittery. You might get anxious, build up that anxiety within you. And, it's kind of like counterintuitive because although it's making you feel awake, you're feeling very, very bad at the end.
Yeah, for sure. But
Mhm.
all right, guys, cool. Hope you guys found this helpful. Hope you found it entertaining. Hope you learned something. But until next time, guys, peace.
Peace. Thanks again for tuning into our podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you who took the time to listen to this week's episode.
If you enjoyed the conversation, we would love it if you shared this with someone who would find this helpful. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at bodycomprx for more tips and information. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.